oftentimes we are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. This brings my mind back to Hurricane Katrina, where there were resources available for us, but we did not know it. There were things available to us that were rightfully ours that we could not take advantage of because we didn't have anybody connected to us that would help us to get it. But then also, there were times when resources were available to us. We knew about the resources, but we did not act on the information that we got. So with that in mind, I want to introduce you to one of our partners, a friend, and also someone that I know can navigate us through these times as it relates to things that are available for us. She's the executive director of the Black Chamber of Commerce. And she's a dear friend of ours. Glad that she, along with her guests, are able to share with us today. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Let me introduce everybody. Kelisha Garrett. Hey, Kelisha, how you doing?
Hey, Kelisha.
Hi. Hello, Pastor. Hello, Pastor Fran. Hello, Bishop. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good to see you.
Same here. Good to be seen.
Yeah,
Today. I think that's one thing that we can all say in common as it relates to what's going on. But thank you so much for having this conversation. It's a much needed conversation. It's one that we have been working hand in glove with different members of the business community, as well as the community in general. Of course, it is 4:00 and it's time for everyone to be walking their dogs. So I'm going to try to keep him as quiet as I can and probably put myself on mute just so that you all won't hear the background noise. But as a member of the City of Love, I truly appreciate all of the guidance that you all provide to our church community as it relates to things that are going on from a business aspect and a financial aspect, just understanding how to manage our money, right? Mm-hmm. And those things that should be near and dear to us may sometimes often not be shared with us via some of the types of media stream or information sources that we may not be aware of. So collectively, under the rule with the Black Chamber, the New Orleans Regional Black Chamber of Commerce, we have really taken a charge at being advocates and providing information to our communities, whether it be a layperson or business, as it relates to things that impact them from a financial standpoint. And the things that are going on right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the stay-at-home orders and how we are to navigate a regular life, right? This is a new normal that only has been played out in movie scenes. And as we all know, the movies come to an end. The credits roll after about 2.5, 3 hours, and we get back to it, right? It's been a month, and we're still in uncharted territories. I have some amazing individuals who are experts in their own field that are going to share some insight as it relates to SBA processes, right? The Small Business Administration and how they have stepped in to garner support to our community, as well as Michelle Craig, who is a practicing attorney that focuses in labor law, and Mr. Perry Sholes, who is a consultant, an HR strategist, but also over the HR organization that's here, the Society for Human Resources. So along with these three individuals, we hope that over the next few minutes or so, we can kind of touch base on some of the concerns that you all may be experiencing, as well as answer a few questions. I'm gonna try to get him to calm down. I'm sorry. So I know that we're gonna kind of roll into it, and look, I've been on calls every day since this has happened, multiple calls a day, and it's either a child throwing a ball in the background or the dog that has to use it. But we're coping as best as we can.
I heard one of the major news outlets say that technical difficulties is the new norm.
It absolutely is. It is. So with that, I know I think there were many calls that were related to the overall process with the with the SBA's process for the economic injury disaster loan. We have with us Mr. Susheel, who's going to go through just an overview of the program. He is actually a regional director with SBA. He is a great friend of ours, a Tulane grad, I do believe. And so he's stationed out on the West Coast. So it's a little bit hard with us communicating sometime with the 2-hour difference, but he has stepped in every time I've asked him to come and give you guys a little bit of information about the program from a overarching standpoint, and then we can get into some more specific questions as they come along.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelisha. Hello, Lester and Fran. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Fine, thank you. My hair is a little bit of a mess. That's the new norm. And I am jealous of people with hair like yours, my friend. I'm going to put on my Saints hat. Sorry.
Oh, that's good. You're in now all the way, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm a Who Dat Nation from way back in 1981.
Okay.
And, not a day passes by when I don't talk about my Who Dat.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Anyway, appreciate you having me. Where would you like me to start in terms of your understanding of you started very eloquently, needing to know what the resources are, needing to go to the resources. What are you hearing in terms of what the greatest need is? How could I address it? Because what I don't want to do is talk at a level that is more standard operating procedure. What I want to do is talk more so, if you are a entrepreneur, this is where you go. If you're faith-based, this is where you go. So on and so forth. More like a Q&A talking conversation, right? So help me engage in that dialogue so I can help out.
Maybe we can start with a couple of questions that we have already, and then Kelisha may have some direct needs, because sometimes we don't even know what to ask at a time like this. But how long do you have to be in business to get the SBA loan or grant?
The direct answer is you have to be in business prior to the incident period. So in other words, the declaration came out in the month of March. The injury period when COVID started was, I believe, February the 15th. As long as you were there in business prior to February 15th, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure this applies to you or not, but I'll ask, if I'm an independent contractor that employs subcontractors, do I qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program? If so, will I have to pay it back?
The definition of the Paycheck Protection Program, by definition, the amounts that you use for payroll is forgivable up to a maximum of 75%, right? So by definition, he or she is. The guidelines came out brand new. So let me take you to a website, and I'm going to share, appreciate you letting me share my screen. Let me put it up here first, and then I'll share my screen. Hold on one second, okay? Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Enable his participant screen sharing and make sure that they can hear me. While we're doing that, we have applied for the grant and PPP. We have received approval for PPP, but have not heard anything about the grant. Can you give an update on the grant and when the PPP will be funded?
Okay, so Luke, let me open it up a little further, okay? I believe what you're referring to when you call it the grant is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. Is that correct, Luke? I'm going to make that assumption. Okay, perfect. The advance comes and the economic injury comes from the SBA. Different procedures under the same umbrella of services, which is PPP, which comes from the banks. Okay, so the bank part will be funding your PPP, and they'll tell you what their timeline happens to be. Okay, that is the part where 2.5 times your payroll cost is the indicator of what your maximum loan amount has to be. You've got to pick an 8-week period. So my screen is being shared. Nope, still disabled. Okay. So that's where the PPP comes in. You need to talk to your bank. So who's your bank, Luke? So I'll keep on going. Oh, Fidelity. So talk to Fidelity and ask them when they're going to fund. They may be wanting some last pieces of information to fund your loan. As far as the economic injury part, it is usually 2 to 3 weeks to process, and then 5 days for funding. Actual underwriting, thank you. Is that G for Grace or G for somebody?
G for G.S. Jarrell.
G.S. Jarrell, there we go. Mr. Jarrell, thank you, sir. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so basically this is your Treasury website. So Kelisha, do you mind typing in home.treasury.gov for me, for everyone to see? So this is where literally the application for the PPP, it's pretty straightforward. You would put in this is where you would pick your corporate entity, whether you're sole prop, partnership, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, independent contractor, self-employed, 501c3, 501c19, travel business, or this is under section 31B2C, and then other. I haven't seen too many others, by the way. So let's say you are a incorporated and you are a C Corp. That would go there. Address, your tax ID, a trade name if applicable, phone number, and this is payroll number comes right off of your financial statements. So if your accounting statement comes in, right there, that's the number you would put in times 2.5. So by definition, if you guys read, anybody making over $100,000 has to take that portion off the top. So the most a sole prop or independent contractor can apply for is $8,333. Multiply that by 2.5, and that's the number you get. Number of employees is being asked for obvious purposes. If you're a nonprofit, this area would be 0. If you're owner, you would put in your owner's name, Kelisha Garrett, title, president, 100% owner, tax identification number, and the address. After that, all these are questions that you self-certify. Can you guys see the screen enough, or I'm going to make it larger?
Make it larger.
Can you see? Make it larger? Okay, hold on one second. Let me move this bar real quick. Are we good? Perfect. Thank you. So to go back for the parts that you guys didn't see, it lists all the corporate entity types up top. The legal name of the corporate entity, the address, your tax ID number, the phone number, and the payroll amount right here. So what you would do is take this right off of your P&L, and that's the average cost for 2019. Multiply that by 2.5, and that number comes out to here. So for sole props, as we know, it's capped out at $100,000 because anything over that you got to deduct. So the maximum you're going to put in this field is $8,333. Multiply that by 2.5, and that's the number you get. This down here, as we talked about, is, example, Kelisha Garrett. She owns the company. She's the president, 100% ownership. Depending on whether it's a corporation or a sole prop, you would either put an EIN or an SSN. Now, you need to self-certify these questions. Whether you're suspended, if you've gotten a direct loan from the SBA, so on and so forth. This is down here is affiliation. And here are the details. Take a look, and I'll get back to the question that was asked of me by Luke. Certify, sign your name. Here's that definition of 100,000 times 2.5, and details of what you need to do. So, Luke, back to your question. Go to your bank, ask them. The EIDL comes directly from the SBA. Was there another part that I didn't ask you, or that I didn't answer?
He said he's
It's all good. Perfect. All right. Carry on, sir.
Are there certain businesses eligible for the economic disaster injury loan from the SBA, or are all businesses eligible to apply?
All businesses are eligible to apply, as long as they're not involved in certain types of sexual activity, narcotics, anything we consider illegal.
Are there any forms that we should submit with the application?
No, ma'am. No, sir. Let me take you to the to our website real quick. Kelisha, do you mind typing in COVID-19 relief.sba.gov on the side panel, please? I'm going to share my screen again. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
This is the website that you go to. Right up top, you see the address, COVID-19 relief.sba.gov. This is where we come down to. These are the businesses that can apply with us. A business with no more than 500, a business with more than 500, an individual who operates on a sole prop, with or without employees, or an independent contractor. You're a cooperative, you're an ESOP, you're a tribal small business, you're a business, agriculture cooperative, aquaculture, very big in Louisiana, nursery or producer cooperative, and you're a business, and then you're a nonprofit. Once you mark one of those, so let's say I mark this, you ask me the question about what businesses can and can't apply. If you leave any one of these blank, they'll come back and ask you to refill it. And if you still leave it blank, you're potentially ineligible to apply with us. You cannot be a state, local, municipal government entity, you cannot be a member of Congress. You can't be in the business of lobbying. You cannot derive more than a third of your annual gross revenues from legal gambling. You cannot be doing any sexual acts. Agriculture enterprises. You can't be a principal with a 50% that's an affiliate or greater ownership, and you're not involved in any illegal activity. Some people might say, for example, in California, hey, cannabis is legal, but it's still a federal no-no, so they can't apply, even though they're a business under the state of California. This is what the website looks like. You would fill in your name, your trade name, EIN, organization type, answer the question whether you're a nonprofit or not, a franchise. This number here comes right off of your income statement, your cost of goods sold, your rental properties, nonprofit cost of operations, operating expenses. If you're a faith-based entity, you would actually answer the question there. This would be blank because this makes a stipulation that you're getting money from an insurance company. Anything else that goes with that, in this case, would be zero. And then your information about your ownership, date, and phone number. And after that, when you get to this part here by the summary, Lester, you would actually get a question whether or not you want to request in advance. If you click yes, a box will open up. You put in your bank account information, and within a couple of days after, you get the advance in your bank account.
So, Susheel, I know there have been some questions related to if they apply for the EIDL loan, can they also participate in the P3 and the differences between the two? Can you just give an overview about the differences in the programs and what they are actually trying to address from a time frame standpoint? I know PPP, they're trying to get out a little bit faster because of the dualities in the programs and having more people coming through SBA's EIDL.
Correct. To put it very simply, ladies and gentlemen, PPP has been administered through the banks with an SBA guarantee. It's 100% SBA guarantee. Basically, they're making sure that you return back to a certain level of revenues and certain number of employees of a certain time frame. That's why they ask you to pick the 8 weeks, and they're asking you to pick the dollars and cents. So that's being done through our banks, credit unions, and non-bank lenders. On the economic injury disaster loan side, that covers the gamut of your working capital. So in other words, anything that you would list on your schedule 2202, which I'm going to, you want to punch that in for me, Kelisha? I'm going to pull up schedule 2202 real quick here. So you see that form, folks? Who you owe, what amount you owe, when do you owe them, what the balance is, if it's current or delinquent. Don't worry about if it's delinquent. That's the idea behind economic injury. Maturity, what you pay monthly, and whether there is a security interest behind it. So anything that you would list on here, economic injury, disaster loan will pick up as an injury because these normally would have been paid out of your cash flow. So because cash flow has just literally obliterated, you need some sort of funding to come in. That's where we come in. So we have to specifically make sure that the items listed on this side here is paid for by our economic injury disaster loan. The grant that, as Luke pointed out, we'll call it an advance that becomes a grant if your loan's turned down. And turned down on the economic injury does not mean that you'll be turned down for PPP. One has nothing to do with the other. Okay? This is long-term. First payment due 12 months from now. Your interest rate is 3.75%. It's fixed. Maximum amortization of 30 years. No fees, no points, no closing costs, no prepayment penalty. So whatever you can list on here, the working capital program from the SBA will pick up. PPP only picks up rent, interest and mortgage expense, payroll, and utilities. So this covers product and people, whereas the PPP only covers, if you notice, there was one particular area they focused on, times 2.5. What was that? It was the payroll piece. Was that a little deeper answer than you expected, Kelisha, or was that enough? You're muted. You're muted.
I'm trying.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I was like, they muted me back. Yeah, no. So that is the answer, and I want to actually reiterate that because it is the mass confusion that people are experiencing right now. Those of you all who have employees that are on a payroll, we are encouraging you to go to your banking institution and apply for the PPP. If you do not have a bank that is participating in this program is ever evolving. Everything that we're doing right now, none of this was foreseen. So they have extended, they being the SBA and the Treasury are extending applications to local banks, credit unions, CDFIs, to get them on a list to be able to participate in this program. They use an extension of what was previously the SBA 7A loan program. So there were some banks that had previously participated in a program like this that was for another instance. They reactivated them, but are now actively encouraging more institutions to come online. Some of your major banking institutions, i.e. Capital One, I know one for sure, because I just asked this question to them, are stated to be participating, but they don't have an application up as of yet. So there is still some question, and maybe Susheel can help out with this one, but again, PPP is ever evolving, so it may not have a perfect answer to it, but there's some question as to when the 8 weeks will begin as it relates to covering a payment once they apply and get approval and or receive those funds to do payroll expenses. But again, PPP, think about it as payroll, mortgage interest, but anything that you have on your balance sheet, your P&Ls where you have expenses, you need to put those on your EIDL loan.
Well said. Well said. And what I'm doing is I'm going to the actual language on the Treasury website. It's an 8-week time frame from February 15th through June 30th, and I want to get that to you real quickly.
Okay, and while he's typing that in, there was also some clarification around if the business was a new business that started this year or within the last year, what they would be looking at as it relates to your finances to establish how much you're eligible for.
So this is another.
Do you have to be registered with the Secretary of State?
In the state that you're doing business in, yes, sir.
Yes.
So if you're in Louisiana, you would go to Louisiana. If you're in Mississippi, you'd go to Mississippi. And all the states have been declared a disaster, so it's not really an issue. So this is your fact sheet, if you will, Small Business Paycheck Protection Program, right off the home.treasury.gov website. All right, and I'm going to get to the next one. Kelisha, carry on. Did I put this address on the chat box?
Yeah, I just typed in the home.treasury.gov, and all of these are www.
Yes.
Many of the resources that we are sharing, they've been actively updating so that everyone can see where we stand. But I do have to make this disclaimer that things are changing every day, which is very hard in one sense for us to continually provide information because it's outdated by the next 24-hour news cycle or day that has moved forward. When in doubt, I can say this: apply. Let the institution tell you that, you know, your business may not be eligible for X, Y, and Z component or what they are eligible for before, but go forth and apply. This is the first time in the history that I've been aware of that we have had the ability to be able to respond to this type of disaster with the allowability of a fast-tracked grant. Also with a grant that is looking at a program that will also be, you know, excusing or levying some of the payments that are due right now. So they're working on all of those caveats. Many people have debt service. Some people even have Katrina grants that they're still repaying because we're still in that time frame. So looking at where payments for mortgages, rent payments and things of that nature have been suspended or put on hold for right now because there is no money that's actually circling in our economy right now. So err on the side of caution and go ahead and apply. Just at least get your information submitted.
And Lester, if you've noticed, here's that time frame right here. 8-week time frame between February, let me go back, right? '15 to June 30th. That's when the program expires. Does the PPP loans cover sick paid leave? This question specifically had to do with being a seasonal business. We talked about that.
That's when it expired. That means you have to have everything in by then if you're going to do it?
By the 30th of June, you have to have everything in. Yes, sir.
Everything that's critical to businesses, everything regarding the SBA, right?
Correct. The paycheck, the P3, as Kelisha said, you need to have applied by June 30th. Yes, sir. Whereas ours, and I say ours with a little bit of affection, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the deadline is the 21st of December.
Okay.
Okay. The paycheck, again, viewed through the eyes of maximum employment, that's PPP. It's payroll specific. They want to bring back, there's some conditions to it. There's fact sheets that you folks can download from the home.treasury.gov. The economic injury part covers the entire gamut of your working capital because that is product and people. And you got to pay your vendors, you got to pay your rent, you got to pay your mortgage, you got to pay your bank line of credit due. So for folks who have loans that they're paying their banks back for, their lines of credit, let's say you got a bank loan for your fleet, for your machinery, you would put 12 months of your current portion long-term debt due on your current liabilities. That's a legal requirement. You can potentially include that and make those payments. Whereas the PPP, you could put it in there, but then that term is 2 years and that amount is not forgiven. Well, if that's the case, you might as well get a longer amortization from the economic injury. So that's where you compare and contrast. One is for paycheck protection. It specifically says paycheck protection. The other one where it specifically says economic injury, and both are being provided by the SBA.
Okay. What other documents would be required other than filling out these forms?
So on the PPP side, this may be a very good scenario for Luke to speak up. Could Luke talk to us about his experience? Is he still on the call, perhaps? Because he could then share with the rest of us Fidelity, what Fidelity did, and he could be, the spokesman for you folks as to Fidelity. If not, I'll tell you that the forms that the SBA is asking for their guarantee is to support your payroll. So let's say I'm the bank and Kelisha comes to me and she's got a number, let's say it says $10,000. I need to figure out how Kelisha reached the $10,000 number. So she'd give me her income statement. She'd give me her audited financial statements, maybe a reviewed financial statements, maybe a compiled financial statement, maybe a bank record, a canceled check that supports her attestation that she is looking for $10,000 a month times 2.5 for a total of $25,000 that I'm going to be guaranteeing. And if she can support that, for the most part, the loan is hers. And that's where from bank to bank, they may have a different requirement because not every bank is the same. That's what I wanted to hear from Luke as to, Luke says he would love to speak without a problem. Mm-hmm. Could somebody unmute him?
Unmute him. He's unmuted.
Go for it, Luke.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Bishop. So Fidelity, the process wasn't difficult at all with Fidelity. They did ask for a payroll summary. We currently use ADP for our payroll solutions, which made life easy. Was that they made a custom form that certified for the SBA and the PPP process. So we had to download 3 different documents, but it was showing the state taxes and employee payroll tax. Mm-hmm. Then pretty much showing our average payroll over the last few months. And then showing how the number of employees that we had that was on our payroll. So once we provided those documents, then the approval literally came back in less than 3 days from the bank. The only thing is we're just waiting on it to be funded at this point. But that's all they asked for. Now, a word of advice for business owners, if you do have a payroll solution in place, maybe you want to contact your payroll company and see if they already could help run a report for you already. Like I said, if you have ADP, I know personally ADP made a custom report simply for you to go and click on, run your report, and bam, you're done. So you do have a payroll solution in place. Contact your payroll solution and see if they already have that report already built for you, so you could go ahead and apply for your PPP.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's exactly textbook how it's supposed to work. So not that I'm plugging, Fidelity, but the system was built to be that specific and that easy and that streamlined.
Now,
I appreciate your time, Luke.
And the last piece to it, now my business attorney, he did advise me, and my CPA, he was like, hey, try a smaller bank. And luckily we already had that relationship with Fidelity, because you'll probably get a quicker response because they are a much smaller bank versus your larger national chain banks and stuff like that. So I do know Fidelity is accepting outside clients that are not current clients of theirs. Whitney Bank, they're only doing people that banks with them, stuff like that. So if you do have a smaller bank or a better relationship with a credit union, I suggest you check out them first as well.
Jarrell listed a list of required documentation along with the payroll calculator app can assist in improving your loan option. If there's an LLC that will ordinarily be approved under the PPP plan, but however fails at question number 1, can the LLC be transferred to another person to provide for qualification eligibility?
Generally speaking, Cheryl, during disaster timeframes, if there's a change of ownership to affect what you just very specifically said, usually the lender will say no, because now you are affecting it to come out with a preferable outcome that you didn't have before. So you may want to check your attorney, talk to the bank before you do any such thing, because that might potentially put you in harm's way.
I would also share to just hold tight, because as we stated earlier, there are some organizations, entities, and individuals that have been left out due to the financial construction of the organization. from an angel investment type of opportunity, or, you know, from someone that's a silent partner, or from a trust, having ownership in a business and in other types of legalities. So I would kind of hold tight before trying to move anything. Just again, let's just try to figure out where the legislation is going to fall. Because they are making some changes and amendments. I know that they are changing some things this week. So let's just try to hold tight on that. And I know there was a question that we missed earlier above, and I do want to have time for the unemployment stuff to be shared as well. But there was a question about having a contractor, a 1099 contract employee, and the person owning the business, whether or not they were to apply, and if they did, if they would be able to receive that payment back. So I'm going to, because I think the question has went all the way to the top. I can't see it anymore. But just to try to paraphrase what they were asking, if they themselves had 1099 contract employees, if they were to provide that as payment, would they still be able to receive the funds? And are they at that point to then continue paying their contractors, what I think that they're getting at?
So right here is where the independent contractors would automatically apply by themselves on the SBA website. If you're a business owner and you've got contractors, have the contractors get their own economic injury.
That's the best.
That's the best way to do it. Okay? And if you have nothing but, in that case, you'd be a sole prop then. In which case you would apply sole prop here also for economic injury. If you want it forgiven, you would go with PPP without the independent contractors. They want to separate out. They want to separate everything out and make it clear for the person underwriting it.
I think that's exactly what she was asking, is what that was said on the side. So with that, like I said, we're going to actually, I thank Susheel actually for taking time out of his day to participate, and know that we do have access to him. He is covering a very wide region, but okay. We will be able to of course, have him come on. We will be sharing all of these websites, but I do want to give some time for us to kind of switch over into the conversation on the unemployment or HR side that both Perry Sholes and Michelle Craig are on. If you can unmute them, they can provide a little bit of an overview as it relates to how HR issues or circumstances that are going right now are impacting both the business owners as well as some of the full-time employees or contract labor that's trying to figure out how to navigate that field. So I'm going to let you guys go. I don't know who's unmuted, but if you want to go ahead and get started, that'd be great.
Michelle? I think Perry was going to go ahead and start.
I'm going to. Hello, everybody. I'm Perry Sholes. Okay. I'm Perry Sholes. I am the owner of Progressive HR Strategies. It's a human resources consulting company. And I'm also a member of Kelisha's board of directors and Black Chamber, and the president of NOLA, New Orleans Society for Human Resource Management. So Michelle Craig, my partner, is on the line, and she's an attorney. Michelle, you want to just tell everybody about your background?
Sure. I've been practicing law for about 17 years now. I do a lot of work with small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, and do a lot of labor and employment work. We've been dealing, Perry and I, with companies that are dealing with the fallout of COVID as it relates to their employees, how to deal with unemployment and other issues. So we're hopeful we can answer your questions today. Sometimes the answer will be, there is no answer yet, but we will work through it the best way that we can.
Yes, I would agree with that. So we were going to start with the unemployment. So I'm going to just back up a little bit. So in order to rectify the issue with pay, there's two paths, as Michelle and I sort of talked about. One is the the employer can pay employees through the two laws that were passed under the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act, sort of the FFCRA Act, right? And so under that law, there's two pieces to it, right? And so if you're an employer, you have employees, there's some stipulations where no matter what size you are, you need to be dealing with that. And so we're gonna talk about, so that's one path. The other path is for an individual to file for unemployment. And so I'm going to talk about the unemployment. A lot of you probably been hearing about this $600 a week thing that's going on. So typically, in the state of Louisiana, unemployment is $247 a week. If you are working for an employer who's contributing, you can go online, you can apply, fill out your application. The unemployment will contact that employer to verify the situation of when you departed, and then the Unemployment Commission will make a decision on whether or not you were granted unemployment or not. Well, those conditions still apply under the new circumstances, and the base $247 a week still applies. And what has been added, though, is a pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. And it's a 13 weeks of pay at $600 per person. I'm sorry, per week. And so this is above and beyond the $247 a week. So it's feasible that an individual, if they're collecting both, could collect $847 per week if they're approved for this. So this period of time for this $600 is from now until, I believe it's July 31st. And so there's this period where they've decided to try to make sure that people are getting wages at that $600 level, or $847. If you've already used unemployment this year and you exhausted your $247, then you can now still come back in and get $600. And so the other pathway for people who are independent contractors, or even people who are part-time. So let's just say that you were working 40 hours and your hours have been cut and you're now making 20 hours. That is a reduction in pay, and that is also a trigger for unemployment. And so you can get unemployment even if you're still working, but your hours have been reduced. And so, so you can apply. And then people who have, as they call it, do not have sufficient work history, meaning you haven't worked in some time, or you've just been out of the workforce, you can now come back in and then still qualify, if you will, for unemployment. So the stipulation around qualifying for unemployment, I guess the first tactic is whether or not you are eligible for work. So if you have a job and your employer is offering you work and you decline work, then there could be some issues where your unemployment claim could be denied. And so I wanted to stop a minute and have Michelle sort of talk about the whole sort of legal piece about the unemployment claim process.
So there's a lot as it relates to the legal piece. First, I want to go back and kind of talk a little bit more about the foundation that you spoke about, Perry. So who qualifies if you are no longer working through no fault of your own? If you're still working full-time but you earn less weekly, if you're willing to report your earnings from the prior week to the unemployment office so that they can calculate what the amount will be. That earning, though, it includes gratuities, it includes tips, it includes all other sources, and it's a gross amount, not a net amount. You also have to be willing to engage in reemployment activities such as going to a business resource center and certifying that you are looking for a job. You got to weekly certify that you are still unemployed. Must be ready and able to work, as Perry said, and must be conducting active job searches. Though that's kind of the landscape of what was pre-COVID and what's now post-COVID. Post-COVID, however, they have relaxed the must be ready and willing to work standard as it relates to some of the elements. For instance, you can still get unemployment if you say, I have a child that I have to take care of, or a relative that I need to take care of, so I can't work. If you are not eligible for the FMLA leave, you may be eligible for unemployment because you simply can't work because of that reason. However, you kind of are able to work, so that's been relaxed. It's also relaxing the conducting job search activities, because the reality of the situation is that we're in a situation. There's no job search activities going on right now. And the unemployment office realizes that. What you cannot receive benefits for are some of the same reasons you couldn't receive them before. If you voluntarily quit, if you're fired for misconduct, if you're unemployed due to a strike where you receive an economic benefit, or you refuse work, as Perry said. If there's work to be done and you refuse to do it, you can apply, but that employer has absolutely the right to say, we had work and they just wouldn't do it. And you probably will be denied. The new post-COVID unemployment law allows for gig workers to apply. It allows for self-employed individuals to apply, and it also allows for people who have reduced schedules to apply. That was not the case before. They're still working through those rules, however, because payroll data on an employee is easy for the unemployment office to get. Not necessarily the case for gig workers. So what I will say is have as much data as you can about the work you did and how much you made in those previous months. If it's your 1099, if it's a K-1 for self-employed people, the more information you have to be able to give them about what you made, the easier it is for the process to be. And the reality of the situation is the process at this point is a process because everybody's applying. So you can expect a turnaround that is not as quick as it once was. I think last week, I think you said, Kelisha, 6 million people applied, and we expect that amount or more this week. So we have a lot going on with unemployment. So there will definitely be a delay. With their new federal law, it added another 13 weeks, as Perry said. So now instead of 26 weeks, there will be 39 weeks of unemployment benefits. The new $600 benefit will end July 31st, 2020. But the $600 a week is very helpful for employees if that is something you're eligible for. The hardest part, though, is that we have no idea when this will be implemented in the states. Right now, the federal government said, this is what we have, states, here you go. And it's letting the states implement. Because of that, each state has their own rule. The states signed on to the fact that they wanted the $600 extra benefit on March 29th. All states did that. However, they do not have a timeline for implementation. They do not have the same rules. If you go to the Louisiana workforce site right now, they say that they're still in the process of trying to figure out how to implement the rules as it relates to the extra $600 and how to make sure that money gets out to the people. You cannot call. There's no more information. They're not going to give you any more information. At this point, that's all that's there. So what I can tell you about that is that it is frustrating to not know everything that you need and to not know what the rules are as it relates to the state. But you can get your documentation in order so that when it is time to get what you need, you can submit it and you can be one of the first ones there as an employee so that you can get your benefits when Louisiana does in fact start implementing. I have a kind of a list of some frequently asked questions that I was going to go through. Kelisha, I can go through those and then we can take the questions in the chat, or we can take them now. Either way works for me. Some of the frequently asked questions might answer those. So how do you want to proceed?
We have some questions coming into the
yeah, we have a few on the side, but if you can, I think we just have maybe 2 or 3 on the side, and I did put the laworks.net website there for everyone to access. If we can just take those first 2, and then if you can run through your FAQs just for sake of time, and then after we can take a few more.
Okay.
So the first one was if you are working on commission and due to COVID, your commission amount has been impacted. So what if you were, is what he was asking.
You should apply because they are determining that it's a broader scheme rather than one that is narrower. So what I would say is if you can show, and that's going to be the most difficult part, show that you were working and receiving a certain sum, and then you are receiving less than that, then you would likely be eligible for unemployment benefits.
Yeah, I would say that one of my businesses is a commission-based business, and so I in fact, and instead of applying for PPP, I applied for unemployment, and it's because I can show that my income from commissions being deposited into my bank was at a certain level, and then now those commissions are gone. So you can definitely have that drop in commission be your documentation. And I would just say that wherever you're depositing your commissions would be the place that you would sort of use to document the change and the flow of income. You'll need to have some kind of documentation.
So the next question, thank you, Perry. The next question is unemployment income taxable?
So looking on the website, it appears that it is. Yes.
Yeah, so again,
yes.
When I applied, you have an option to decide whether you want it to be taxed or not. It's a choice for you when you're filling out the application.
Right, but you would still have, would you do you can decide if you want to take it out now or if you want to do quarterly?
That's correct. You could decide if you want to take it out of your weekly payments or if you're going to just deal with it at some other time. So that's a risk to the person doing the application.
So there's also another question here. I was actually going to bring that up about employers who have 1099 workers if they were responsible for unemployment benefits for 1099 contractors.
So 1099s, much like the Payroll Protection Act, really need to apply on their own through their own company, which is where it gets to be a little tough because 1099s are supposed to have their own company. And that becomes a rub because a lot of times, particularly small businesses, are employing people as 1099. So this is an aside that has little to do with this, but your 1099 should have a tax ID number so that that company, in such a situation as this, can apply on their own. There may be an issue when that person, if it's just a person and not a company, goes and applies for these unemployment benefits. But I suspect that this is happening so often that that probably will not be a barrier for the person. So your 1099s that they should apply for themselves instead of the company applying for them.
And I think that some of this was coming up also from those in the gig economy, and especially with those that may have participated with like Uber or Lyft or some type of car service, because they are 1099. They are filing this on their personal income taxes, the pay that they're receiving, and so the company itself is not paying into unemployment because they're not an employee. So there was some discrepancy, just ambiguity around whether or not they can apply for unemployment, and then if so, what are they showing as far as what their wages were to adjust to what that could be received from a benefit standpoint.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what my experience was. So before, if you were 1099, you could not apply for unemployment, right? So one of the questions is that I was asked on the application was, what was my income for the last 6 months? So you probably need to have some way of documenting what your income was for a period of time. And during the application process, even though some of the things are relaxed in the background, remember, it's a website that's been up there forever. And so they still will ask you questions about, are you willing to work? Are you looking for a job? What types of jobs are you looking for? So you will have to answer all those kinds of questions. And there is a question about a 1099 and whether you were a 1099 before. So there's some adjustments that are made to the process, but the process does still feel like it's for someone who was in a job working on W-2 and that type of stuff. So it's a little frustrating, but you can still pop through it and realize that you're 1099. So this law, so under the Pandemic Emergency Employment Compensation Act, that act allows for 1099s to apply for unemployment.
Right. So bottom lining that, gig workers, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors going through the process for receiving unemployment is going to feel like pulling teeth. Keep going. Keep filling out the application. Figure out your answer to the question. Make sure the answer is truthful to the best of your ability and get to the end. Don't let a question stop you from continuing, because the question is not going to change. When you come back the next time, you're still going to have the same question. So Perry's right. It's counterintuitive, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the law changed like yesterday, and our systems haven't caught up with what's going on, because we haven't caught up with what's going on. The fact that there's a pandemic out of there is still mind-blowing to most of us. So understanding that, do what you can on that site to get the benefits that you are allowed to get under this situation and that you need for your company and for your livelihood.
So Michelle, with that, can you go through a few of those FAQs? I'm just watching on time, and Jarrell, if you can, or Bishop, if you can just let us know about how much time we have left. But if you can run through a few of those, I do believe that the information will help some of the individuals that are dialed in right now.
Sure, and if we need to stop, just let me know. So if a person has to stop working to care for a child, can they get unemployment benefits? The answer is yes. But the key is stop working. So if you stop working because you were let go, you can go and get unemployment benefits. But if you're with the company and the reason you cannot work is because you have to care for a child, it's possible if that company has under 500 employees, then you could get the FMLA benefits. You cannot get FMLA benefits and get unemployment at the same time. You may get the FMLA benefits for the 12 weeks at 2/3 pay, and then get to that end of that 12 weeks and say, I still can't come back. I can't do it right now. With that point, you are probably going to separate from the company. If you do, then you can get the unemployment benefits. They can be stacked, but they cannot be taken together. Can a person get health insurance if they receive unemployment benefits? You will be eligible for COBRA if you are no longer with the company. You also can go out on the health insurance marketplace. Several states have increased open enrollment so that it starts now. I'm not sure if we're one of them. I don't think we are. We are.
So if you lost your medical insurance because your company terminated your employment, then you have COBRA. You also have what we call a life event. And so a life event will trigger up open. So healthcare.gov, or I would say if you lost all your income, I would go to Medicaid. Go to apply to a state for Medicaid.
So how long will it take to get unemployment benefits? Again, they usually make you wait a week, and then it takes a couple of weeks for it to go through. It's taking longer because there are more people. How long can you get unemployment? It was 26 weeks. It's now 39 weeks. And you remember you need to renew your claim, so you will need to call in or go online every week. I am still unemployed. I still need this money. If you do not do that, you will not get those funds. So that's something that needs to be communicated far and wide too. You have to check.
Say that part again. That is very, very, very important.
Okay. If you receive these benefits, you get to continue to receive them, but you need to go online and say, I need to continue to receive them every week. That's how unemployment was set up prior to this. It is the same. And if you don't, you will not receive those benefits. Those benefits are usually received either through a debit card or direct deposit. They encourage the direct deposit for obvious reasons. And quite frankly, direct deposit is going to come faster than the card. They usually load a debit card. So you get one and it gets loaded. But you will not get that money if you are not telling them, I still need this money every week. So just set an alarm on your calendar, call every Monday and say, by the way, I still need these funds, or call every Friday. Again, that needs to be told far and wide, because that's the reason that people stop getting their unemployment. And the last thing you want to do is have to go back to them.
Restart all over again.
And start all over again, because you're starting from scratch.
And the other thing that's a good tip is to go, if you're going to do it online, I would go like late at night, 10 o'clock at night is what they recommended, till 3 or 4 in the morning is the best time when the web's not going crazy. So that's kind of the best time to go out and do the applications.
Do you go online weekly even though you have not received the determination?
Well, you're really going online weekly to certify that you need to continue to get the funds that they've said that you are eligible for. So there's no reason to go online weekly until it is clear that they are going to give you the funds.
Yeah, you should get a letter. I got a letter immediately into my inbox after doing my application that confirmed that they had received my application, and it was a laundry list of things, including the rules that we're talking about here, that you need to go on and apply every week and submit, the 3 job requirements, all of those kinds of things. So if once you have that, now you're active, you must go online, and they'll probably just catch you up on any kind of payments, but go in every week because your claim is a weekly claim.
Right. If someone has 2 jobs and lose one, can they apply for unemployment? Yes, you are eligible, but you're eligible for partial unemployment benefits, but you still may be eligible for the federal on top of those partial. The way to calculate the partial benefits will be a formula. What that formula is, your guess is as good as mine. No one knows at this particular point. If the workplace temporarily shuts down, can the employee get unemployment benefits? Yes, they can. Someone is laid off as soon as they are hired. Can they get unemployment benefits? Under this situation, yes, they can. Can a self-employed person get unemployment and the PPP? So the short answer is no. What you need to do is compare the benefits, because if you apply for unemployment and then you apply for the PPP, those two don't really go together. You're saying that you don't have a job on one hand, and then saying on the other hand that I'm going to keep everybody employed, including myself. So the best way to decide what to do there is to compare the monies and compare what will happen if on both sides, and make the best decision for you and your family. Unfortunately, the PPP is taking a while. So one may say, well, I'm going to apply for unemployment right now, and then when the PPP comes, I'll just not get unemployment anymore. I can't tell you whether that's a good or a bad decision. I can tell you that the most strategic way to do it is to pick one, ride it out, and then wait for that one, because that way later on, because much like Katrina benefits, the federal government came back. So you don't want any situations that they can come back on you with. And that one, I think, is fraught for some serious issues. Furloughed employees.
Can I
Go ahead.
Just to interject right quick right here, because there is an ask around business owners who did not have a payroll. whether or not they were taking owners' draws or getting dividend payments, and their business is now closed, so they didn't have payroll. So you have to very carefully understand what you need to do from an accounting standpoint. If you have to then put yourself on an active payroll and then pay yourself through the business, you can have your payroll coming back then. But owners' dividends payouts, those are profits. Profits are not payroll. So those are two totally different things. You guys really need to talk to your accountants about how you are structuring yourself to receive payment of any source. Because as Michelle stated earlier, this is the federal government. As easy as they can put money into your account, they can take it out. So once this is over and we start having compliance come into effect, they will remove those funds, and it can be even further if it's found to be fraud. So it would behoove each of you to talk to your accountant or to an accountant professional about how to classify yourself from a payroll perspective if you are the owner of a business that was not listed as an employee or have payroll services of that sort.
Mm-hmm. And the last question was, do furloughed employees get unemployment benefits? The answer is yes, because their hours have been reduced. So nothing probably. And the difference between being furloughed and being laid off is that a furloughed employee is still on the role as an employee, even though they may not be getting any hours. They may still be getting benefits depending on the agreement you made with the employee and the agreement that is with the benefit provider. But they may still not be getting hours. Because of that, their hours have been reduced and they can get unemployment. An employee who has been laid off, however, is no longer affiliated with the company. It's possible that you may say, oh, I'm going to lay you off, but I'm hoping to bring you back when all of this is gone. That laid off employee is still, for the purposes of unemployment, a laid off employee, because we're hoping to bring them back. We don't know if we're actually going to be able to do that. And that is how the unemployment office will look at it. I know I ran through those fast because I wanted to give everybody a chance, but my contact information is on the flyer. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, or if we have more questions for the chat. But I certainly hope this was helpful.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I would say that if employers are furloughing or laying off people, to be clear about which path you're telling your employee. You should give them something in writing. You should talk to them about, Medicaid as an option, healthcare.gov. Provide them with resources so they're not out fumbling around to figure those kind of things out on their own. So.
And also, I think when we, I see that we should be having another call. I know that we're going to be talking with Susheel about a time frame that we can jump on an additional call to kind of talk a little bit more thoroughly through EIDL as it relates to when you are doing some of those changes, having those full-time employees, and then also, reducing the number of employees during this period of time, and what types of impacts that may have to amounts that are forgiven from a grant perspective, or amounts that are provided from that $10,000 upfront portion, that grant portion, and how it's being calculated. So I know that we're going to be having another call this Friday on April 17th. There are also, as I stated earlier, some institutions that have been not been included in this act. Hopefully, we're trying to get some clarity on whether or not some of the non-traditional nonprofits, such as your 501c6s and 4s, are having some conversation around that. But your C3s are religious institutions that may not have been designated a C3 at the time. I know for certain that there are a few U.S. congressmen who have petitioned the Treasury to fast track 501c3 applications for religious institutions that may not have had it at the time. But we will be moving forward to discuss some of those questions, as well as providing this information to everyone as well. I think that this will be able to be replayed. I do believe I saw Jarrell answer that in a question. And then Subsequently, after that, we're going to be having a conversation about homeowners. We are asking some questions on behalf of those individuals that are Airbnb owners or those individuals that have rental property that was income that was coming in from that means of aspect, and how they are able to participate and to what extent they can use those funds or have those funds recorded as income from a business standpoint. So we have more to come on that. Those are some things that we will be moving to discuss. And before I turn it back over to Bishop and thank everyone for their time, I just want you all to be very keenly aware to take care of yourselves and each other. There are many business owners, many employees that are experiencing mental health issues now. And it is as it relates to the anxiety, the unknown, uncertainty as to what's going to happen, when will this end, what will trigger an all clear, which no one knows at this point because there's no vaccine and there's no cure. So as it relates to taking care of yourselves and others, I am working with one of the city agencies. We have a community group that is trying to identify resources for mental health, call lines and individual providers, care providers that are there. But please, if you are having any issues in this way or are having any feelings that you need to express, I know that both Bishop and Pastor Fran are there and available, as well as the other elders in the church. But do turn to someone. Know that we are all experiencing this and we may be handling it a little bit differently. But the way that it is impacting you is important to us. And the only way we know that is if you share. So, and individuals, if you see someone and they look like they don't look like themselves, please take that time to have a conversation with them because they may need you to check in. That's my preaching for today. I'm going to say thank you from the New Orleans Regional Black Chamber of Commerce and allowing us to participate in these calls. Thank you, Michelle, Perry, and Susheel for your expertise and giving of your time and sharing with the congregation and the community today. Looking forward to having additional calls with each of you all in the very near future. I know you put your contact information there, Susheel. Any information that you guys need from us as it relates to him, we have his information as well. Jarrell has it and can share that with you all. So Bishop, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you all, Michelle, Perry, Susheel, and of course, Kelisha. Thank you so much. We believe at the City of Love, this is our main line where we are feeling like we want to help people the most. And that is by helping people in their business and also to get all the resources that they possibly can to help get us through this particular time. And I do totally agree with you that right now, more than any other time, we need to remain inspired, to remain uplifted, and to be there for each other, and stay in contact with each other. And once we get any information from the City of Love, we will pass it on to you. So thank you all so much. Again, this has been recorded. We are going to send it out to everybody that participated and give other people a way that if they were not able to participate, to be able to view the recording and prayerfully, hopefully answer their questions. So thank you all so much.